Okay, so this is Elements of Style rule number 8. Use a dash to set off an abrupt break or interruption or to announce a long A positive. So what we're talking about today is the punctuation mark of a dash. Last week we talked about colons. We've also talked about semicolons and commas through these home lessons. All of them are tools that you can use when you're writing to make your writing more clear, right? Because as you know, when you write, you don't have nonverbal expression. When we communicate verbally, right, you have all those nonverbal cues that you can go off of. When you write, you don't have that. So punctuation, in a certain sense, is a substitute for that. Okay, that it can substitute for what we lose when we don't have that those nonverbal cues. Okay, so for example, when you have something like a comma, sometimes you pause, right, or you speak a little bit lower, right? He went to the store, comma, which was closed, comma, and returned home again, right? So the volume changes. So similarly here with a dash, okay, dash is a little bit stronger than a comma. Okay, which is important. So if you have like a longer parenthetical expression, you could use a dash. Okay, but the parentheses, because sometimes you can use parentheses, they're a little bit more formal. Okay, so a dash is a little more informal. Okay, so it kind of fits our texting culture because it's like you can just throw a dash in there. It's easy to see. Right, a comma is a little bit harder to see. Dash is this long, very visible horizontal line that kind of tells the reader this is a pause on what I was saying, or I want to insert this information. Okay, so use a dash to set off an abrupt break or interruption, or to announce a long A positive. So what I've done is I've put 3 sentences up here where a dash can be used, but I didn't want to put the dashes in yet because I want to talk about the different options you have here, right? Because technically, for this one, he was, I still can't believe this, trying to climb in the window, right? Unless I read that a certain way, it's hard to unscramble where's the main clause, where's the the parenthetical clause, right? But when I read it a certain way, you can hear it. He was, I still can't believe this, trying to climb in the window, right? You can see the distinction. So here would be where you have the first break, right? And then here would be where you have the next break, okay? Now you could use commas, right? But it's kind of a big interruption, right? And it goes right in between the verb and the rest of the sentence, okay? The verb and its complement. So really, a comma isn't best here, okay? Because it's such a strong interruption, it's abrupt, right? Like the rule says, okay, it'd be best to use the dash, okay? Now you could also use parentheses, right? Like that, okay? And again, technically it's not, it's not wrong. But with punctuation, it's an art form, right? You want to know what the best punctuation mark is to use to communicate how you want to communicate it. Okay, so parentheses here, it's a little too formal because you can kind of hear the person speaking, right? It feels a little bit more conversational, a little bit more relaxed. So parentheses feels kind of like like a research paper or something, right? So the content of this sentence doesn't fit the research paper mold. Obviously, right? Talking about someone trying to climb in a window. I still can't believe this, right? It's expressing disbelief by the author. So let's put a dash there. Okay, 2 dashes, and that is more or less the best option. Okay, so it's the same for these other 2 examples. Okay, starbursts, formerly known as opal fruits, are available most everywhere. Okay, again, formerly known as opal fruits is that parenthetic expression. You could put commas around it, right? And it would be all right, technically. But I think because it is sort of a longer interruption, right, I would put a dash. Now again, right, it is an art form, so it's always hard to say, with precision what would be the right and the wrong. Okay, but if you're the writer, you feel it out, you know what you want to say. Okay, so you put a dash there. Okay. And just an aside, often the only way you can use a dash on your keyboard is to hit the hyphen twice, right? And then eventually it kind of turns into the dash. Or I think there's a key code you can hit Alt and hyphen, depending on your computer. But it's hard to find the dash sometimes when you're typing. But if you just do double hyphen, normally it morphs into the dash after you go on to the next word. Okay. Lastly, his first thought on getting out of bed, if he had any thought at all, was to get back in again. Right? So without any punctuation, this sentence looks like a mess. You don't know, wait, where's the main clause? Is there a subordinate clause? What's going on, right? But when I read it, you can hear it, right? His first thought on getting out of bed, if he had any thought at all, right, was to get back in again. Now, obviously, I'm overemphasizing that for this illustration, but you can hear the change in volume, right? And often that's what punctuation is all about. You can hear the change in volume, right? His first thought on getting out of bed, and I say it a little quieter, if he had any thought at all, and then I go back to that normal volume, was to get back in again, okay? You can't read your paper to the person you're writing to, right? So you can't read it that way. You have to use punctuation to communicate the change in volume, the change in tone. That's why it's so important for written communication where we don't have those nonverbal cues. Okay, so this would be like a long appositive, right? If he had any thought at all, okay, that's a long interruption to the sentence. So let's use a dash. Okay. Let's not use parentheses because that would seem too formal. In other cases, parentheses would be best. In this case, a dash fits what we need. Okay? So use a dash to set off an abrupt break or interruption or to announce a long appositive. Amen.